We live in a fearful, anxiety-driven age where the problems and challenges of the world, which bombard us daily in our news feeds, far outstrip our ability to respond. People we have conversations with are no longer wrong or misinformed. They have somehow become evil. We've dehumanized them and made them objects of ridicule in our lives. But what if the root of our problem is not found out there? It's not our dense, crass, evil friend or family member or colleague at work, but it's more inside of us, in our own minds, in our own hearts, in our own emotions. What do we do with this anxiety and desperation that surrounds us every day and somehow finds its way in? Are you longing for lasting peace that brings wholeness and healing in your life? Last week we began this series on peace, and some of you have already responded by sharing your desire to know this peace. Some of you confessed, confessing your struggles with anxiety or with fear or with unforgiveness in your life, and knowing that it's stripping away and stealing not only your peace but your joy. This week we're going to look at some of the things that kill our peace. This is actually a two-part sermon. So this part's the long part, and next week's the longer part. Peace that we all long for, peace that we want to hold on to, can be killed by certain things in our lives. And I want to begin our time this morning with a poem of reflection. The Northumbria community shared this poem. You can read it and kind of meditate on it as we go. Calm me, O Lord, as you stilled the storm. Still me, O Lord. Keep me from harm. Let all the tumult within me cease. Engulf me, Lord, in your peace. That poem is a prayer as well. Engulf me, Lord, in your peace. So why is it that beautiful flowers are harder to grow than weeds? I don't know about you, but I can grow some of the best weeds in the county. A lot easier than I can grow flowers. Weeds I can grow in the cracks on my driveway, and they will flourish in my flower bed no matter what I do. It's ridiculous when all the things I do to try to keep them out, whether it's mulch or spray or pulling them, they seem to come back with a veracity. Weeds like anxiety and conflict seem to have a robust life of their own, don't they? They show up in our hearts. Peace, on the other hand, is like flowers, and they need to be tended and cared for. And when we've had enough of the frustration with weeds, we can go in and we can either dig up the flower bed completely and start all over, or we can just let them take over. And unfortunately, sometimes we do the latter. But even when we try to cultivate peace in our lives, life has a way of growing weeds that choke out and even kill our peace. And nobody likes to be out of control, do we? We like the weeds to stay out of the flower bed. We may tolerate them along the fence in the backyard, but we don't even want them in our lawn. My mother asked me, she goes, "Is it too late to weed and feed my yard?" And I said, "Mom, it's hit 80. It's too late." I have an armadillo problem at my house. These dandy little creatures, they like digging under my shed and using it as a campground or a whatever. I go and fill in the holes. I block the holes with different kinds of items, things that they can't dig through. I've even used this really stinky spray as a repellent, and they just dig new holes. I want to evict them, but they keep coming back. And I want to have a conversation with them, but they're avoiding me. It makes me bothered. It's frustrating. I feel out of control. Do you know this feeling? Not with just armadillos and weeds, but do you know this feeling in your life? You know, about the only time that we don't mind feeling a little out of control is when we either get on a roller coaster and we're expecting it, or we go to watch a movie that's suspenseful and high adventure. But both of those, we know there's an end. We know we're going to get off and go, whoo! And then we're going to say something like, that was fun, or that was great, or I'm never getting on that ride again ever. But this feeling of being out of control is not anything we embrace, and yet it seeps into our lives a lot. We find ourselves on a hamster wheel of life, running from place to place, hurrying to meet a schedule that we did not make, running late, incurring costs for things that we did not plan on, and expending physical and emotional energy that we do not have, and we do it every single day, and we do it again next week, and next month, and next year, and it perpetuates, and we find this endless cycle that might lead us to fear, and the fear is we wonder, will this ever go away? Will we ever find peace? Will anything ever calm down again? And we fear. Or we might even get angry. And it shows itself, and we say, why is this traffic so bad? Why is the line so long? And then aggression might well up as people take too long to get out of the way. Will you just use your blinker? That's where mine comes out. Left lane people, get out of the right lane. No, the other way around, right? If you're driving slow, over here I saw a meme the other day that says if you're driving 5 over, get in the right lane. Because some of us want to really break the law. You're laughing because you've probably thought that. Sometimes it's our attachments. We have attachments to things and that accompany our routine, and we get frustrated when these things are removed or taken from us or are threatened. These things, fear, anger, aggression, and attachments are weeds. They are persistent peace killers, and we're going to look at them a little bit closer this morning. These 4 are for this morning. And why are we doing this? Because Jesus says He is with us in the midst of life's struggles, and He wants us to have peace. My peace I give you, He says. I want you to have this peace. 2 Corinthians 4 is a great reminder for us in the midst of all this world we live in. Beginning of verse 8, it says, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus. Why? So that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. Verse 16 says, therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. They don't seem light and momentary, but they are. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, and what is unseen is eternal. Hang in there. Keep pulling the weeds. Keep striving. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. The Scripture tells us. The world is full of weeds, but God is growing in you a peace more beautiful than any garden flower, a peace that passes understanding. I wonder, have you seen the advertisement? Maybe I've seen it on Facebook. I can't remember. But it's for an app that you can put on your phone that will tell you if a plant is healthy or not. You can take a picture of it. It scans it. It'll tell you the name of it and whether whatever it's lacking, if it's unhealthy. Oh, this has too much water or too little water, too much sun, too little sun. I think it's, it'll tell you all kinds of things about it. Man, it is this really cool thing. It's a good thing. And it's wonderful. And I wonder sometimes, I kind of wish they made one for the stuff in our life that we could just scan situations. Is this something I need to be involved in? No, this is bad. Stay away. Ooh, okay. Maybe you scan people. Wouldn't that be amazing? This one's lacking some things. Might want to steer clear. That might be bad, because then we might not have any friends. But we have to take the good and the bad together. It's crazy. Fear is one of the first killers of peace and that we're going to look at today. Fear is now listen, fear is not all bad. We humans need fear and its associated feelings of that gut-level apprehension in order to navigate and survive in a world where we are constantly trying to come to terms with it. But fear has a psychological effect as well. It is unsettling and distressing, and we feel it. We fear, and all of a sudden we have tension in our neck and our shoulders and our back. And we wonder, why am I feeling this way? The feeling of being unsafe or being threatened by or in danger from a person, from a certain place you're in, a setting or an institution. It is a common motivator of anti-peace and a reason that we lash out at each other. Did you realize that? Sometimes it's the fear in you that causes you to lash out at others. Sometimes we freeze in the face of fear, while other times we turn and run from a context that could hurt us. In our daily cases of fear, you know them as the 3 F's, the typical reaction to fear. In one way, we fight, we flight, or we freeze, which is not ideal. Our goal is to maintain a peacefully responsive rather than a harshly reactive presence. We want to be peacefully responsive. But yet insecurity comes in, and it's a form of fear. Worry is another. Self-doubt, past trauma, they create insecurity and fear in us. Trauma exists on a very wide spectrum, of which most of us have plenty of low-grade sources of trauma in our lives and insecurity in our lives. For instance, anytime you've ever failed or felt rejected, it creates an insecurity in you. Scary social situations or embarrassments. The inner critic that accuses us of being less than perfect. I really goofed that up. If fear is indulged too often, we can begin to wonder who we are, and we lose our identity, which may lead to a feeling of being lost. And fear out of control manifests itself in things like cussing people out, flipping them off, making cruel judgments, and dismissing people offhand. Just go, psh, and you want to tell them where they can go, and some of you do. There is, however, a healthy way to deal with fear, so that, ironically, the fear becomes the basis of a deeper peace. Let me give you 2 things we can do. If you have fear in your life, fear of being rejected or accepted or insecurities or trauma or whatever it is, first of all, name the fear. And I'm not talking about give it a nickname. I'm talking about call it what it is. Naming it defangs it. It brings it out of the shadows. When you call your fear by its name, you gain power and authority over it. You can then ask for prayers for it from a friend or a trusted prayer partner in your life. And when you name it, you see it for what it is. It is real, but it's not ultimate or determinative. It does not define you. And we're trying to root it out. God's peace, then, is foundational and decisive. The second thing we do to defeat fear in our lives is to take hold of the promises of God. If I'm going to name this thing, then I've got to reinforce myself. I need to meditate on the promises of God in such a way that they become who I am. Picture yourself over and over again the truth of Psalm 23, verses 4 and 5. You know this, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. I need to picture myself in this setting that my shepherd, the Lord, is watching over me no matter what is raging around me. I don't have to be afraid. Use your imagination to grasp the certainty of Jesus with you in the fiercest storm, as we read in Matthew 8. And he says, peace, be still, and he calms the storm. He is with you in the storm. And similar to our unconscious trust that we put in our brakes and our gas pedal when driving a car, you have the confidence of Isaiah 26:3 that the Lord gives perfect peace to those whose faith is in them, whose faith is firm. I don't have to think when I move my foot to the brake that when I press, I'm going to stop. The same way, I don't have to be afraid or even think that when I move my thoughts and my heart to Christ, He is there. He's with me. So we welcome in the Holy Spirit to do His work, as Romans 8:6 says, the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace, and we are bringing every thought captive to His obedience. That's how you defeat fear and keep the weed of fear out of your life. Anger is a close relative to fear. Anger within drives out peace, and sadly, anger is a friend and an ally to many peace-challenged people. For some of us, it is the very thing we lean on daily to get through the day. Some of us cannot imagine doing life without anger as our chief weapon to get our way. Habitual anger kills peace better than almost anything else. What can we do if we are caught in this trap? Well, we can learn to catch ourselves. And this requires us to be curious about ourselves. Why am I acting this way? Can you pick up on the clues that might be triggering you? Look inward. What is your motivation? Who is your anger really directed at, and why? What can you learn about yourself and about God and about others in this moment? Am I really angry at them, or do I just really want my way? And this is how I do it, by making them back down. Practicing the presence of Jesus helps us learn and grow in every situation, and this includes moments of anger. Practicing the presence of Jesus. The boy trying to learn to shoot free throws sets a goal, and he says, I will not stop until I hit 10 in a row. And you know how it is if you've ever done that and you get to 8 or you get to 9 and then you miss one. And you have to start over, and it's frustrating, but you keep going and you practice and you concentrate, and you're concentrating on the angle of your elbows and the flex of your knees and the finish and the follow through. You're saying, I'm going to do this right. And we get frustrated, but that's how we attack anger in our lives. We have to say, even if I make it almost to my goal and I fail, then I'm going to back up and say, all right, I'm going to do it again. The first time you may lose control after the third attempt and you say, I've got to start over. But when you start making it to 8 and 9, you have to celebrate. I almost made it through. I almost made it through my day, and I'm going to keep on. You see, when we pursue peace through spiritual practices and the attendance of the Holy Spirit with us, we actively work the fruit of the Spirit into our inner being. It's like we're massaging it into the dough. We knead it into our lives slowly, and it makes its way through the whole thing. If we don't, We can easily become defensive, posturing, and pretending. And then debilitating self-talk can begin. I'm never going to finish this. I'm never going to be able to control my anger. I can't do it. And then we just quit. And we just keep on being angry, which goes on to destroy marriages, and destroy friendships, and work relationships, as well as our own soul. Anger. Turning it over to Christ. Practicing the presence of Jesus helps us find that peace. Aggression is our next weed to discuss today, and it may sound like the very thing we need to face or to use to face this world we live in today. We need to be aggressive, don't we? Being aggressive in a tough athletic contest or in a military battle may be exactly the posture we need to take. But in the spiritual life, what's going on internally, we must cultivate the opposite of aggression, which is gentleness. Adrian von Kamm writes, "Gentleness is the readiness to quiet down the noise that threatens to cut us off from the voice of the Spirit. Gentleness is a preparation for and fruit of peace." When we're aggressive, what generally flows out is strife with others, failure to love others, and a predisposition to fight. Discussions become the context for hostility. You know what I'm talking about? You know, there's some people you just go, I don't even want to talk about certain subjects with them because we're going to get in an argument and I'm going to get mad. Some people confuse aggression for boldness, which is something that we are told to be in Acts 4 and Acts 28. Paul tells us to be bold in our faith, but there's a difference between appreciating the usefulness of being bold and making the leap to embrace aggression as a lifestyle. We will not have peace within or peace between us when every conversation, every board meeting, every talk with a child or spouse, or every simple conflict with a neighbor becomes a setting for a rationalized aggression for getting our way no matter what it takes. The attitude is a loser in the long term. Think of it as a huge ornery bull that is unrestrained. It may prove useful in the future, but it is much more likely to lead to an accident that harms a loved one in the process. Aggression. The final weed for today is attachments, and this really kind of shifts gears in these first peace killers. The attachments are our possessions, the things that we have. And when possessions become an extension of ourselves, we have a problem. They become representative of who we are and our status. We have a problem. I had to come to a realization that my Camaro did not make me cool. I had a cool car, but I was still a nerd driving it. When I was in middle school, I really wanted a members-only jacket. You remember those? Some of you are around my age, but they were expensive. But I wanted one because it would make me accepted and feel like I was in. I had something that everyone else had. My parents got me the knockoff, and I thought I was going to die because everyone knew the knockoff was not the real deal. As we get older, it may be an image that we wish to convey. We want our neighbors, our friends to see us a certain way, a neighborhood we live in, the boat we have, or the status that we believe says something about us and who we are. And the question really is, how do I find fulfillment in life? And when our attachments become the mark of our fulfillment, we've gotten something out of sorts. And we'll steal our joy. What happens when you wreck the car? Or when the boat sinks? or when you got weeds in your yard in the neighborhood that you so long to live in. My status takes a blow. How do we detach ourselves from the deeply embedded notion that fulfillment comes from things, from trips, from cruises, luxury cars, fine dining, exotic vacations? You know what I'm saying? How do we detach ourselves from this? What are we to think of Jesus' words from Matthew 6:33 that says, "Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well"? What do we do with that? Is there a way to interact with possessions and experiences such that they bring peace? I think so. Yes, there is. Attachments often order our lives. Desires, organized by God's purposes, though, bring peace. We can hang on to the things a little more loosely because they don't define who we are. Seeking God's purposes first will put attachments in their proper place, and our souls will find peace. Peace killers. Which peace killers trouble you the most so far? Fear, anger, aggression, or attachments? Take a moment to wonder why. Why are these controlling me so? And then ask God, and maybe a spiritual friend, for some help pruning this peace killer to make room for peace. Let's pray. Father, our lives become so rhythmic that oftentimes we can fall asleep to things that are destroying us, things that are stealing our peace. We become complacent about the fear. We've gotten used to it, about the anger, our aggressiveness, and even our things. Father, help us today to root them out and then pour in us the peace that comes from you. Fill our hearts, O God, so that we are not controlled by these peace killers any longer. And may your peace reign in us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.